and welcome back to Doll Week. We are here live at the Grovian Doll Museum with Michael Canadas.
Hi, Ruben.
Hi, we're so excited for our next seminar that we have planned for you. It is called Fantastic, the Art of Being Cool. So if you are a fan of fans, fine art, painting, dolls, fashion, there are so many things in this seminar that you're going to absolutely love. So share, engage, like, comment, do it all, because we're going to have a lot of fun today. Michael, start us off.
Well, a lot of us, when we go to museums, we see great works of art and we think, oh, I wish I could have those fabulous works of art. And what's very interesting is artists have always had to make a living. So a lot of the ways that artists made extra money or actually made their living wasn't from canvases. It was from doing things like painting fans. So here we have a cross-section of fans, and this is just part of our collection of fans that we have. And we're going to have soon an upcoming event called Fantastic. And so we're showing a whole bunch of different types of fans. There's really not much difference between a full-size fan and a miniature fan. And I've been asked, how long have fans been around? And they have been around since hot weather. And even in the 17th, 18th, 19th century, when we didn't have great heating and air conditioning, a fan was a necessary part of life. Even Queen Victoria complained that winter balls at Windsor Castle were dreadful because they had to use so much candle power that you became hot. So a fan was something that was necessary. One thing that all fans have in common is that they're all lightweight. Because remember, you're having to handle them, carry them. So if you're dancing at a ball and you have a fan around your hand, you don't want it to fly off and hit someone in the head. And also too, fans were used for other things like this little gizmo. So this has a little mirror in it. So you could check your look, but you could also check who was behind you. So they have a lot
kind of a safety mechanism right there.
And then another thing people ask of what kind of materials fans are made of. They're made of just about any lightweight, durable material. So you have pigskin fans, you have them made out of kid leather, you have paper, silk, any material that you can think of. And then for the stays, which these are called stays, they could be ivory. Most of the ones that people think are ivory are actually really cowbone, because that was a very easy material to get. And there was also Belize, which is part of a Wales. This is Belize. And it was part of how the whales picked up, the little shrimps that they ate. It was also a filtering system.
Look at that. How old is that fan right there?
That one's probably from the 1890s.
Wonderful.
In this collection, probably the oldest is this fan. And this is probably 1690 to 1700.
Amazing.
And you can see it just has fabulous flow to it. And it is paper, but remember, like our paper money that we think is paper, our paper has cotton in it, woven in it to make it durable. So this one, as you get earlier, they're pretty tough.
And you use it. You're just flipping it.
Oh yeah, you could. This absolutely could be used today.
Amazing.
But one of my favorites, and for us in our collection, the first really good fan that we ever bought was this one. And this one is from the Directoire era, which is the era right directly after the French Revolution. It's a very short period in decorative arts. But it translates to, this is the birth and triumph of love. So you look at that, and then you open it up, and there's Cupid's arrow. One thing you look for when you buy fans is that fans come in fan boxes. Fans can be moved from one box to the other.
Amazing.
But when you have Cupid's arrow in the box, it's pretty much, you know, it's its original box. So here's his box, or his fan. And so let's get to the story of Cupid. So Cupid is born in a cloud. So there's a little cloud, and it goes around. This is his whole life process.
Amazing.
And all of the things that he deals with, disappointment, regret, learns to forge his own arrows, makes an anchor. So it's the whole story of Cupid. And if you think about it, if you're in, you know, late 1790s, this in a ballroom that's lit by candlelight, that is just a spectacular thing. And there was also a language of fans. Fans meant different things. You know, I mean, that's a whole other study to study the customs of how fans were used. But this is just a really wonderful piece. But
how old is that piece?
1790s.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. And the Directoire style had there was it in its time, and usually the style is a little cruder because the Revolution, you've lost a lot of craftsmen, and it's a little cruder, but it's getting to the neoclassic that is going to, you know, burst open when Napoleon takes over. In this group, though, there's two I think are super duper important pieces. One is this group of fans here, and these are miniatures. And in France, you have the custom of the official mistress. And one of the official mistresses was Madame Pompadour. And Madame Pompadour had her court painter, which was Francois Boucher. And that was her favorite painter. These four fans are created, they were created by Boucher. So these are very, very important, almost like national treasures. And what's fantastic about them is they are just as beautiful on the back as they were on the front. And we were lucky to get them from actually a man that both David and I knew. His name was John Breckenridge, and he was the last heir of the Comstock Lode, which at one period in time, they were the richest family in the world. So they had the means to, you know, go to France during the great, you know, that time and buy incredible treasures. And he ended up living in Carmel, so that's how we got to know them. But the other one that is really, really important to me, because besides, you know, my love of antiques and dolls, I am an opera lover. And, you know, it pays to be a culture vulture. And this is a really important person in the history of opera. And this is an allegorical fan. And sometimes you do have to research things. I knew the minute I saw it that this was the opera singer Maria Malibran, who died at the age of 26 and was the first international superstar, meaning that she sang in Europe and America and created a sensation everywhere she went. She was beautiful, dynamically talented, she was really one of the first divas. I mean, when they call you La Malibran instead of your first name, that is an indication. But here you can see her whole life here. She was married, got annulled by Napoleon's brother, a marriage, and then the big love of her life was a cellist. So there's the cello.
Wonderful.
Sang Rossini's works. Here's music of Rossini. And one of her great roles, this can tell you everything about her, is from the Barber of Seville. And her character, Rosina, her one aria, I'll translate it, I can be nice, I can be sweet, I can be docile, I can be obedient, but if you cross me, I can be a viper. And that's pretty much who she was. She was a lady with a heart of gold. But things like this really are not replaceable. And I have this to tell you. This little item came off of Ruby Lane.
Oh, wonderful.
So,
that's amazing.
There are a lot of museums and collectors
that
that would love to have this. And when I kind of feel that, you know, our journey here on this earth is getting close to being over, This will go to the Maria Malibran Theater in Venice. And the reason it's named out, theaters are never named after performers, ever. But when she went to sing there, she thought that the theater would look so shabby and was in such bad condition that she said to the promoter, I don't need a fee. I want you to put my fee into restoring the theater. They did, and they named it after her. But this is a really important piece. And this was, she died in a horse, being thrown off of a horse. And if you can see this ring, this is not a ring devoted to marriage. This is her fidelity to her public. And she should have rested and not performed, but she didn't want to disappoint her public, and she did her performances, and then soon after she passed away. So this fan is really right at that period of time when her fans were mourning and in bereavement. But, there's some wonderful things here. And this is actually in the family of fans, but it's not exactly. Technically, this is a face screen. And this you would use if you were, again, I talked about candlelight and fireplaces and the way that they had to have, lighting in homes, which made them very hot. And you had paraffin-based cosmetics because people like to say they didn't wear cosmetics, but they did. And so if you're too hot and you're near the fireplace, your cheeks start to droop. So this is it's what is called a face screen, but it can be used for that too. But what's really interesting about this is if you see, here's a doll, and you open this up, and there's her costumes. So it is actually a face screen paper doll, and you put that
Amazing.
over it. And these are really, super rare pieces that you're lucky in your life if you get one once. And so then a lot of these were, like here is a fan that's by de Villeroy. And they were a fan company, one of the most wonderful fan companies that started in, I think, 1828. And they're still in business today. And they make luxury fans, and they're known for their fans. But here's one that's made out of mother of pearl.
Look at that.
That has just fantastic lace. And look at that movement. It's just a super, super thing. And you can see, too, the label. And they had a location on Regent Street in London, which is still is one of the greatest shopping streets in the world. And you can see also, too, that it says fans and repaired. We were early talking about paper maches and accepting them the way they are. Well, guess what? If you collect fans, you better be prepared to learn how to repair them or have people to repair them because they're a very delicate item. And speaking of de Villeroy, these little honeys are some of the cutest.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that. And these are just little novelty pieces, objects of art that were not really meant to keep yourself cool. And I have seen these in kittens, monkeys, donkeys, parrots. So they did a whole bunch of novelty things. And if you love animals, they're just irresistible.
I love that. How old is that one?
That one's probably the 1890s.
1890s and totally hand painted. Look at that. It's in such superb condition.
Well, the nice thing about a fan is, remember, it can be folded up. It can fit into a trunk or a drawer and be forgotten for decades. And every time we do a nice trip somewhere, I try to find a wonderful fan to add to the collection. And this one we bought on our last trip to Paris, and it's a fabulous, probably 1820s piece. And you remember at the time, Dolly Madison and James Madison were in the White House when this was made, and it's just got those amazing ormolu pieces and the paste stones. Sometimes they're not paste stones. Sometimes they're real stones.
Really?
Yeah,
Look at that.
we don't have any with real stones, but they do exist. And again, look at the reflective quality of that. Now you notice I'm not wearing gloves, and I'm going to just put a little criticism out. I see a lot of people that do things where they're being filmed for museums and they've got their little white gloves on. I never do that. And some people that I know that are very important people in the textile industry, museum part, they don't do it either. The reason we don't do it is because when you have those gloves on, you have no feelings in your hands. You can't feel whether you have a grip on something or not. So it's easy to think you've grabbed it and you've dropped it and you've done way more damage than your oil in your hands ever would. So before I came to do this, I went and I washed my hands in hot water and soap. So I'm good to go to handle all the pieces.
It's a great
That's,
tip.
of course, you know, everybody has their own way that they want to do things. That's our choice here.
So we're looking at these wonderful fans. It is just such a fantastic collection, and we see these dolls that are with the fans.
Well, we're going to talk about these dolls later, in probably tomorrow. But I should mention the power of positive thinking, and not necessarily positive thinking about what you want and not being greedy. A friend of ours did a program on masks, and I went to help her with the audio visual, and I was there for 2 showings of it. It was a great show that she did, and I came back and David said, well, how was it? And I said, it was just wonderful. She did a great program and I loved everything and I learned so much. I said, but there's one thing in that I really want, that I just could hardly stand it. And it was a fan that had a mask incorporated into the fan. So the next day we were doing an event with sales tables, and he was out shopping, and he walked up to me and he said, is that something we could use?
Oh, wow.
So it's a little miniature, a doll fan that actually has a mask incorporated into it.
Amazing.
So you got to sometimes what you want put it out in the universe. And if you don't ask for it, you might not get it. So that was a wonderful thing.
Oh,
and that's
she
what's
just
so
looks
great
beautiful
about
with
what's so great about collecting, is there's always, it's like every day is like Santa Claus might come.
That is so very true. These
And
are
of
so
course,
beautiful.
in here you've got, this was also to, not very often anymore do I costume dolls. We have a department that does that. But I bought on Ruby Lane a Saint Elizabeth, an ancient Saint Elizabeth. And she came, and she did not arrive. She arrived broken. And it wasn't the dealer's fault. It's just, it's just something that happened. And she laid around for a while. I never, I figured I could deal with that. I mean, broken in 1,000 pieces, so it could never be put back together. But she had this costume that had this piece in it, and it was a Saint Elizabeth. And then I realized, I kept looking at all this embroidery, and then it dawned on me, I'd seen it before. So I got out my reference books, and I found embroideries on known Rose Bertin costumes. Rose Bertin was Marie Antoinette's dressmaker, designer. And so then I put 2 and 2 together. I thought, Saint Elizabeth, this embroidery with these flowers, all these things matched the embroidery that was known on Rose Bertin's work. Then I realized it was Saint Elizabeth. Marie Antoinette's sister-in-law was named Elizabeth, and she became a saint. So after the Revolution, in order to disguise this is my theory, this fragment of material, they created Saint Elizabeth. So then once that happened, and of course I no longer had a saint, I thought, I've got to dress a doll using all of that.
She's just
so
amazing.
This is to represent Marie Antoinette's sister-in-law, who became a saint.
And proof positive that there is no such thing as a bad hair day at the Grovian Doll Museum.
We just don't go there. I mean, there's not a lot I can do with I call them Larry, Moe, and Curly with what I've got left now, but I can do someone else's. So and then of course you can see these little fans, and I'm not going to open them all because one thing about fans is I'm showing you the ones that I know that are easy to work with, but you shouldn't overwork fans. I mean, it really should. I mean, if they're in the boxes, and if you're lucky to find them in the original fan boxes, that those usually work pretty good. But I think it's best to not overdo it. But the materials, I mean, these are really, if you look at them, I mean, how gorgeous is that?
Look at that.
Think
How
of
old
that.
is this one?
This one's
Amazing.
probably the 1860s. And sometimes you have to be very careful when you're looking at a fan because it could be in the 18th century style because fashion has always looked back before they look forward. But this is the 1860s. And this is kind of a Louis XVI revival, so you have to kind of, like for instance here, this is totally, when you look at our, in the completely 18th century. There's
Amazing.
just something about the colors and the painting. It's kind of something you have to expose yourself to it as much as possible, and then you start to see a rhythm that it has.
So we are here in Doll Week, yet we are having a seminar on fans, which is a true testament to...
Well, dolls have fans.
Yeah, dolls have fans, and doll collectors use their periphery in a lot of areas.
Well, I think that if you don't learn about things for big people, how are you ever going to understand it for little people, little dolls? Because dolls reflect the society and the time that they were created. So I think that the more you know, I mean, we had a club event coming up, and one of the members said, "Oh, I don't want to go to that event at the Lace Museum because what could be more boring than lace?"
Ooh.
Well, guess what? Dolls have laces on their dress.
Yes.
And it's a wonderful thing to know. Is it machine lace? Is it handmade lace? Is it 18th century? Is it 19th centuries?
Right.
I think the more you know, you realize that you don't know anything. And then, you build on that. And it just helps, I think it helps enjoy the hobby.
Absolutely. We're just giving an overview, aerial view of these wonderful fans. If you guys are just tuning in, we are at the Grovian Doll Museum in Pacific Grove. We are here with Michael Canadas having a wonderful seminar called Fantastic, the Art of Being Cool.
And here's another pretty one, Rachel.
Look
at those colors.
Look at that.
I mean, the colors are, I know some people like very muted colors, but they had just colors that were just electric. And that there was dresses. This fan was not, you didn't just go and buy a fan. You bought a fan that you knew that would work with your pink dress or your blue dress. So it had to be just an incredible sight to see. And then look at, again, the reflected quality of all the spangles.
And what is the material that the handle is made out of?
I think that this one is cowbone.
Okay.
It's very, very light, and you don't see some of the things that you would see with ivory. I do not agree in any way, with anything to do with the ivory trade, or I would never want anything that I know that, one of those wonderful creatures gave up their tusks for. But I think that if it's an ancient item, there's no turning back that, then I will accept it. But the reality is most of them are made with cow bones. And that doesn't sound so glamorous, does it?
Well, that's sure a glamorous fan. It is absolutely marvelous.
And again, you know what? They're so light. And we went and visited the Polk House, the President Polk's house in Tennessee. And Mrs. Polk had an amazing fan, a presidential fan, with all the presidents painted on it up to her husband's administration. And there was a lot of literature with the fan that It was very important to her that her fans be extremely light, because if she were going to be at a reception for 2 hours talking to someone or working the room, she didn't want to have a fan that was so heavy that it would pull on her, give her fatigue. So the funny thing about these items is they're just so light and delicate, and they're utilitarian yet incredibly beautiful. Because let's face it, the first fan was owned by Eve, and it was a palm leaf.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So if somebody is a fan of, and we have an audience back here that is just enjoying every bit of this, and if you are a fan of this mini seminar that we have just had, and somebody would like to come to the full throttle seminar, how do they do that?
Well, they would go to our website, and they would go to the events page, and they probably would have to scroll through the months, January, February, and so on, and then they would find it. We haven't set the date for Fantastic, or we're going to have Victoria's Dolls and Alice in Wonderland. We haven't set them yet, but we will be getting to that shortly. Right now, at the first part of the year, we have 3 sewing seminars here. So that's kind of, we've got those all planned. But the one thing I want to talk about too before we go is a lot of people ask me, how do you get things? Mm-hmm. How do you find things? Okay, the internet is fabulous and Ruby Lane is fabulous. Anybody that's really seriously collecting clicks on that with their morning coffee. Let's be real. But it doesn't mean within Ruby Lane or a regular life that you shouldn't build on relationships. Mm-hmm. And most of the treasures that we have from the Grovian come from relationships, where people know what you want. And here's a case in point. When I was 21 years old, I went to a collector's house in San Francisco, and this doll was in the case. And for that 21-year birthday, David gave me $350. Well, I couldn't buy hardly anything. But this doll was in the case that's in the hall back there. And so fast forward many years later, a company by the name of Turn of the Century Antiques, who are friends of ours, they knew who had this doll that I saw when I was 21 years old. And I said, would you get that doll for me? And Diane Hoffman, who's the owner of the company, she pursued it for me. And so I managed to get everything that was in that case that I saw at age 21. We have it right now here in the museum.
Amazing.
And she has, of course, a fantastic... Yes.
A fantastic fan. Look at that.
It's probably a Belize in pigskin, but it's just a beautiful fan. And it's an amazing, of course, the doll is amazing, the costume's amazing, never removed from the doll.
Incredible.
So that's a good place to end it. So you've got to work on your relationships, because if somebody that's, let's face it, Harry Winston, he's not going to call you unless you work on a relationship to sell you the biggest diamond in the world.
That is very true.
So you've got to work on that. So that's really one of the keys of having wonderful things.
So before we sign off, we did have a question. Somebody would like to know, you have a wonderful collection here, obviously all kinds of wonderful different fans. Is there a fan that you are still, that has eluded you, that you're still looking for, that you're on the hunt?
No, in the sense of, in a way, these allegorical fans, there's maybe some that I don't know about, mm-hmm. and I would love to have those. Of course, the Boucher fans, this is really a once in a lifetime opportunity. But I also, now I'm at the place where I'm open to finding the thing. I mean, I don't think you should really buy anything unless it's something, I really love that. Mm-hmm. And it adds something to, to the collection or to your enjoyment. And one thing to me is I love having things displayed. Like I've enjoyed this display, but I also love the discovery part where you have a box and you open it up and it's like you get to enjoy it like you just got it. So, I mean, there are things that I'd like to have, but there isn't any. I mean, honestly, I'd love to find some more of the paper doll. face screens.
Yes, that one's amazing.
That I would love to do.
And then perhaps an English Bulldog.
An English Bulldog, and you know, I would love to have the whole set of these, and of course, who wouldn't want a fan? Renoir and a lot of famous painters painted fans. Now, I'd love to have one of those.
Yes.
That I would love to have.
And if you get one, you better call us and do another seminar.
I will call you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. This was just fabulous, and we are looking forward to so many other things. Can you tell us what we can look forward to tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow I think we're going to have a little brew seminar. We're going to have a little Albert Mark talk. And we might actually look at some really early paper dolls.
Wonderful.
Some wonderful pieces. So I think that, you know, people will enjoy that. And then at some point we got to get to the mod world of Dawn.
Right. We're very excited about that, the Dawn dolls. Well, if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment. As always, share the video so other people can see them. You can message us if you want to see anything in particular. And we hope you are enjoying Doll Week. Michael, thank you very much. Bye-bye.